This podcast is about taming fear and anxiety. We will examine this in the upcoming episodes. The question is, how do we tame this out of control beast called fear and anxiety and live a little more abundantly and be a little less miserable? I have seen myself experiencing the typical fight, freeze, flight response many times. But it was really when I was diagnosed with late stage cancer and was given about 12 months that I decided to face and examine fear, especially when faced with an existential threat. This podcast is my perspective and a personal journey on examining, understanding, and attempting to tame fear as I navigate cancer so I can make every day count, live life fully, and blossom to the extent I can until I go to sleep. In this podcast, I will examine fear from the following four lenses or perspectives. Number one, the evolutionary basis of fear. Number two, the neuroscientific basis of fear. Number three, the endocrinological basis of fear. And number four, the autonomic nervous system basis of fear. The solution for overcoming fear will most likely reside in a better understanding of the above. And all I mean by better understanding is to get a gist of the essence, the essential principle of the evolutionary, neuroscientific, endocrinological, and autonomic nervous system basis and how they trigger and complement fear. This examination and understanding, followed by synthesizing the essence of one or all of the five approaches below, I think might take us somewhere meaningful. And these five approaches are: one, the psychological approach to overcoming fear. Number two, breaking the chain of fear. Number three, trying to extinguish fear by exposure. Number four, using meditation, visualization, and contemplation techniques. Five, leaning on scriptures and the insights of seers and visionaries in developing a practical, step-by-step approach that we can possibly adopt so that we can look fear in the eye and either extinguish it completely or douse it enough so we can live life with more joy and abandon. This is a journey, a conversation, a dialogue. I don't claim to have all the answers. It is not perfect, but I guarantee you it is honest. And hopefully, some of this might resonate with you and persuade you to try some of the techniques that I recommend in this series. So, what is fear? It is a fundamental emotion that serves a critical purpose. And what is that? Survival. From both evolutionary biology and neuroscience perspectives, Fear is an adaptive response to perceived threats or dangers, helping organisms to avoid harm and increase their chances of survival. So, fear really evolved as a protective mechanism to help organisms respond to threats. And it is when you, and this response called fear triggers a fight or flight mechanism that prepares the body to either confront from the threat or flee from the threat. And this is crucial for survival in the wild, where predators, environmental hazards, and other threats could quickly endanger life. So, evolutionarily speaking, individuals who could react to threats with fear were more likely to survive and pass on their genes, thereby making fear a useful response that is adopted and adapted by evolution. Fear helps prioritize attention to dangerous situations. It motivates defensive behaviors, escaping, fighting, hiding, etc., that are crucial for survival. And this is not limited to humans. You see this across mammals and reptiles and a wide range of animals, demonstrating its fundamental role in survival across species. It is an ancient, hardwired biological alarm system governed by specific brain networks and hormones. But the problem is, those threats that we faced, our ancestors faced, those ancient conditions don't exist or surround us anymore. But this hardwired automated system comprising biochemistry, neurocircuitry, and this endocrinology driven hormonal system continues to respond like we are still in the old times. And therefore, the response is disproportionate to the threat at hand. It's not an existential threat. And because this biochemical, neurocircuitry, endocrinological response is still so disproportionate that it's creating havoc in the form of an epidemic of mental stress, chronic fear, anxiety, and panic attacks of epic proportions. Mental health issues are largely driven by some of these conditions, and they've been given fancy names and sophisticated terms, which to a pedestrian like me sometimes can sound like a badge of honor. We've all heard of OCD. My wife is convinced that I am one. And we've seen terms like ADHD, PTSD, ASPD, and the others being bandied around. The tendency amongst people who face some kind of a mental condition is A, either visit a psychiatrist, get prescriptions and pop pills, 2, follow some mind relaxation techniques, and there's so many apps that help us with this today. C, people go to places of worship, hope for divine intervention. Some go to astrologers. D, people go to religious organizations, seek out religious teachers. And the reason sometimes we don't find the answers we're looking for, I think, is because none of them make an honest attempt to understand and examine the fabric of our minds, our conditioning from the culture and the home in which we are born, from where we draw our cultural conditioning, and the narrative all this creates in the form of this fear psychosis or complex. And therefore, to understand fear is, I think, if not overcoming fear, but at least gives us clues, 50%, I think, in overcoming fear. So, let us get started. But before that, may I ask you to consider doing the following homework? Questions, really, that I will now read out. I would like you to consider them carefully and answer them to yourselves. Make mental note, or better, write it down in a journal. And we'll go back to it as we progress in this series. Question number 1. What purpose do you think fear has served in your life so far? Has it been protective ever? Or do you think that it mostly limits your potential? Question number 2. What are the situations, objects, or thoughts that tend to trigger fear inside of you? Question number 3. Is this thing called fear linked to something specific? Meaning fear of heights, fear of certain social situation, fear of spiders and cockroaches? Or is your fear somehow more generalized, like fear of failure, fear of the unknown, etc.? When fear is triggered, question number 4, when fear is triggered, how long does it persist? Does it diminish quickly? Or do you think that it tends to linger? Question number 5. Does the fear that you experience cause any physical reactions? Have you noticed sweating on your palms, on your forehead? Do you sense increased heart rate, palpitations? Do you sense a shortness of breath, shallowness of breath? Question number 6. Does fear make you want to avoid the situation or object or thought that triggers it? Or does it push you to confront it in some way? Examine and make mental notes of the responses that come to your mind to these questions. And I'll see you on the other side in episode number 2.